美局势关键时刻，王毅服软，称任何问题都可以拿到桌面上来谈，欲借谈判拖住美国续命。美国宣布对中方统战部官员实施签证限制，中共外交部无力回应，将采取必要措施。美国因香港问题即将制裁至少12名中共官员，华春莹表示强烈谴责。疫情发展尚不明朗，中共市建委突然宣布，从明天起，上海中风险地区清零。因毕业旅行触犯香港恶法国安法，港中大毕业生杨子俊被逮捕。战事将近，美军2栖戒备群已进入南海。中共加紧思想控制，军报再批郭伯雄、徐才厚、房东辉、张扬4个军虎。东莞凤岗观景头市场有人不明原因倒地，医护人员现场抢救。
我现在的位置呢是在这个成都市成都区人民医院，就是在刚刚可能大概几分钟之前呢，就是官方刚发了通报，就是说在这个成都区人民医院在6号的晚上到7号的凌晨，发现了一例新冠肺炎的一个确诊病例。我们现在就在这个医院大门口，我们可以看到整个医院现在已经拉上了这个警戒线，已经完全封锁起来了。然后在门口有这个公安民警，还有包括交警在维持秩序。然后刚才记者停车的地方走过来，看到这个医院两侧的一些小卖部啊，一些为医院提供日常一些服务的一些便民服务点都已经暂时关闭起来了。现在进一步情况我们还在了解中。
四川康定牛羊屠宰费暴涨到320元，摊主给不起，纷纷歇业。广东中山黄埔镇大堰工业区史迈斯电气厂突发大火，全镇停水救火。农民工讨薪遭保安阻挠，当场下跪呼喊没天理。
2021年起，在纳税人累计收入不超过6万元的月份，暂不预扣预缴个人所得税。简便优化后的新规，对于年应纳税所得额在6万元以内，并且月收入有一定波动性的工薪群体来说，将直接受益。
2000部金立手机被称植入木马，魅族也涉入，中共或欲借机收割该企业。无名勇士冒死偷拍新疆集中营内景，戒备森严，气氛恐怖。 中共第81集团军冰封雪人练兵，抓紧演练，夷为备战。
Standing by live at the White House with more. You know, Mark, Rudy Giuliani is a formidable presence. I first started covering him in 1982 when he was the mob-busting U.S. attorney here in New York. He cut crime as New York City mayor 2 terms, changed the culture of this city, guided New York through 9/11. He has put his heart and soul into everything he does, into his current mission. And he was even on with Maria Bartiromo this morning, despite this diagnosis of coronavirus. What is the reaction right now at the White House?
Eric, good afternoon. Well, I'm sure the president also sending his well wishes to Rudy Giuliani, somebody that not only people in New York know, but is known nationwide as a hero after 9/11. And of course, most lately as the president's strongest defender when it comes to the election legal challenges. The president broke the news less than an hour ago on where else but Twitter. This is what the president had to say. He said, quote, Rudy Giuliani, by far the greatest mayor in the history of New York City and who has been working tirelessly exposing the most corrupt election in the history of the U.S., has tested positive for the China virus. Get better soon, Rudy. We will carry on. As I mentioned, Giuliani has been one of, if not the most loyal defenders of President Trump. He supported President Trump for years, endorsing him back in April of 2016. He's a mainstay on cable news, as Eric mentioned, also making an appearance on Fox News earlier today. No indication then that he had known he was tested positive. He certainly didn't say anything about this diagnosis. We have not gotten an update on his exact condition, how he's feeling.
There's a lot of corruption, and the courts are not exactly the fairest. Let's put it that way.
So you think somebody in Washington directed this and directed the big cities in the big swing states to do these tweaks, whether it is the processing of ballots incorrectly or harvesting ballots, et cetera? Who did this? I mean, that would suggest this is organized, developed. Who is in charge? Who directed this then?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know who is in charge of it. All I can tell you is it looks like a very well planned, very well executed situation. For example, at the same time at 3:30 in the morning on the night of the election, right after the election, a truck pulled into the back of the center in Detroit and delivered 100,000 phony ballots. That all got counted for Biden. At the very same time, in Atlanta, they threw the people out of the center. They closed the doors. They went under the counter and brought out about 70 or 80,000 ballots and counted those phony ballots. Some of them counting them 6 and 7 times. All that's on tape. Happened at the same time in 2 different places.
We just heard from John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence, and he said it's very easy to figure out what went on with those 4 individuals. Let the FBI bring those 4 individuals in and ask them, what were you doing with the suitcases under the table? Have those people been questioned by the FBI?
No.
I mean, we'll get an answer right away, right?
Not that I know of. Not only that, those people were involved in taking USBs, taking information out of machines. They have a little history. I mean, it's not just that. They're involved in 2 or 3 other acts of voter fraud. The FBI is nowhere to be found.
We know the media doesn't give it a fair shake, and we know that everybody else is partisan. The American public wants to know, is Giuliani correct or isn't he correct? I don't know whether we'll find that out in time for the meeting of the Electoral College votes.
Ken Starr.
Hi, Maria, and hi, Alan. The prediction of Jimmy Carter and James Baker in 2000 and their commission has come true, and it is a bit of a nightmare. They warned, after taking a very careful study, this bipartisan commission warned that absentee voting, mail-in voting, is a huge potential for fraud. And that's what we've heard from Rudy. So what do we now do about it? I think, to be honest, we're running out of time because the Electoral College meets on December 14th. So it's going to take an extraordinary action by legislatures and so forth. And Rudy is rightly pointing to legislatures because therein lies the ultimate, other than the Supreme Court of the United States, ability to have an effect on the just concluded election.
China, how they're threatening us economically, militarily, technologically, and you just highlighted one of the ways that shows how China is a threat, and that's this COVID-19 pandemic that the Chinese Communist Party, when they knew about its transmissibility, allowed it to go from China to the rest of the world. They intentionally and deliberately downplayed it in their country, pressured World Health Organizations, and allowed it to spread to the rest of the world. And that didn't just have the effect of wrecking the global economy. It didn't just have the effect of killing millions of people, including hundreds of thousands of Americans. It also had grave political consequences. You know, here in the United States, the pandemic influenced a lot about how people voted, but also how they had to vote. As a result of the pandemic, we saw state legislatures as little as 90 days before the election adopting new voting procedures. Essentially, we had universal mail-in balloting across this country in a way that we hadn't seen before. To that point, almost 73% of the American people this year voted before Election Day, a good percentage of those by mail. That's about an 80% increase over anything we've ever seen before. So it's little wonder that we see what's happening around the country as a result of that, with mail-in balloting and all of the questions and the questions that are being raised in lawsuits and by everyday Americans about what happened in the election.
The U.S. intelligence shows that China is conducting human testing on members of the People's Liberation Army in hopes of developing soldiers with biologically enhanced capabilities. There are just no ethical boundaries to this.
And it's called gene editing. It's altering DNA, and it's one of the things that our intelligence shows that China is doing. They've got the PRC, the People's Republic of China, has 2 million strong in its military, and it's trying to make them stronger through gene editing. And that's just one of the ways that China is trying to essentially dominate the planet and set the rules in the world order. And why it's so important and people need to understand is this is an authoritarian regime. It doesn't care about people's individual rights. We've seen what they've done to the Uyghurs. We've seen what they've done in Hong Kong. It's about putting the state first, and that is the exact opposite of what has always made America great. Individual liberties, freedoms, free enterprise, those things are all at stake if China dominates.
Well, Steve, Churchill, I think, was actually dining at Chequers with top American envoys. He was there with the U.S. ambassador at the time and Roosevelt's special envoy to Europe when the news came in. And Churchill's immediate instinct, of course, with a lot of things, was, I must declare war on Japan immediately. He ended up having a phone call with Roosevelt and was asked, what's going on here? Roosevelt replied, we're all in the same boat now. And Churchill, in his own history of the war, wrote, and I want to quote you something from it. He said, quote, being saturated and satiated with emotion and sensation, I went to bed and slept the sleep of the saved and thankful. Remember, this is because for such a long time, Britain had believed that it was alone, America wasn't going to come into the war, and it would end in utter ruination for Britain and the continent of Europe. And this moment, while obviously horrendous and horrific for the United States, proved for Europe kind of the saving moment of the whole war.
Yeah, this once again, I think, shows us America as the essential nation, right? Churchill, as hard as they were fighting, and they were, I guess, over 2 years into the war, as hard as they were fighting, he understood that would take the United States to come basically to the rescue of Europe in order to beat the fascist uprising between the Nazis and Italy. So it was it just once again points out when you read Churchill's 6-volume history of the war how important was American involvement. Of course, a lot of controversy to date about the assault on Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor. You know, did we break the code? Did we not break the code? What people knew, because if you look at it, we were totally unprepared. At least on the scene, it was pretty shocking how unprepared we were. I want to play, if the guys in Denver, we're going to be coming back to Pearl Harbor throughout the show later. We're going to talk about the CCP and about a explosive video that's out by a professor that talks about how they've basically infiltrated the highest levels of the U.S. government with their friends, and that they have this until 2016 and Donald Trump. They had basically ability to get every issue in the world sorted out. So it's a very damning video, and we'll be going back to that with Darren Beatty later in the show. But if the guys in Denver can play, I want to go to the rally of President Trump on Saturday night. If we can play the rally, I want to play the chant that the deplorables put up when the two Senate candidates came on the stage. Can we get that up, or let me know when we get that up? So Raheem, before as soon as we can play it, let's play it. But Raheem, give me your assessment of Saturday night in Valdosta, Georgia.
我这着急呀，战友们，你看看纽约一天1万多呀，一天1万多个呀。加州整个世界158万人死亡，全世界这个158万死亡人数，我跟你说，打1倍2倍也不止。有多少人死了可以确认是冠状病毒的？啊，你们一定要相信文贵说这个。多少专家啊！上星期一个超级专家啊，也是一个咱们国内的一个战友，我说这国内死了大100万了，他说文贵你相信这数啊？我说应该是吧。他说我告诉你啊，5倍也不止。我把这个话给他不含国内啊。他说有多少人死了给你确认病毒啊？啊，怎么可能？医学上有一句话，当你发生大面积的瘟疫、传染病的时候，你的得病率和死亡数字永远会小于真实数字，啊，一般来讲小于3倍、5倍、10倍是正常的，因为医疗条件它永远跟得病者它的差距太大了，啊，它不可能每个人准确的给你看出是这个病毒传染病死的，它只能漏掉。
美国报告了超过17万5千例新增感染病例。日本政府将派遣日本自卫队的护士来响应医务人员应对重症病人增加的要求。随着感染病例的激增，韩国军方和警察将协助进行接触者追踪的工作。中国疫苗抵达印度尼西亚，朱利安尼的冠状病毒检测呈阳性。朱利安尼发推文说：“我得到了很好的照顾，感觉很好。”汉莎航空到年底将裁减29000名员工。因病毒限制措施得到缓解，墨尔本迎来了5个月以来的首个国际航班。
Dear mama, are you okay over there? Your son is crying and missing you. It sees you in his dreams. You sent Jake down to CCP, 'cause it's God's will. It's God's will. So I'll wait for you, and I'll see you when we and the CCP, yeah. So